Hey guys, what's up? It's Tyler from Ohio Snake Guys here, hanging out with one of my Rosy Boas. Actually, our only Rosy Boa. I'm not sure why I said one of. Um, this is a Morongo Valley female. She's juvenile. I'm just kind of guessing on her being a female, and actually, I'm starting to think it's a male just by the tail length and the vent placement a little bit. But I figured I'd go over care for these guys because they're a rather odd snake. That a lot of people have heard of, but not a lot of people have kept. If you've kept kitty and sand boas or rubber boas, then you kind of know the general gist of them. So basically, a lot of people see them though, and they'll get confused because there's a bunch of different localities, and they'll often just be labeled Rosy Bell, and they'll think, well, that must be a morph or something. Well, not really. The three most common ones you'll see, with the most common is the Morongo Valley. The other two I'd say I see the most are the St. Felipe and the Mexican Rosy Boa. So they all look pretty different. They almost look like a completely different species of snake, or at least a morph. But they're not. They're naturally occurring, just different localities. This girl's in a custom-built rack. It stays 80, I'd say 85-ish. Maybe it's probably a bit less than that. They don't need it super-duper hot, but they don't like it cold either. You can see the thermometer back there. I don't know if you can see it. It's actually looks like it's just under 80 right now. It's fairly early in the morning. All the lights and stuff were turned off overnight. So, yeah, that's why it's not as warm as it should be. But I'd say a hot spot of around 80 to 85 would be fine. Don't want to go too hot on them. I've had plenty of success with her. I've had her for a couple months, and she's been fine. So, you can keep them in aquariums. Actually, aquariums aren't a bad idea. Just make sure they have a lot of room. This one likes to stretch out. She's constantly rummaging around her cage, whether it be burrowing or climbing across this little lip of the tub. They're quite the active snake. As opposed to Kenyan sand boas, which are very similar in care, but are much less active and you don't see them. That's the advantage to Rosy Boas, although I love Kenyan sand boas, otherwise I wouldn't have two of them. Substrate, I use lizard litter, although do not use lizard litter. Not that it's a bad substrate, but it's expensive. And really, here's what you should be buying. The Alpha Pet, Katie makes it, a bunch of different small animal, rabbit, and guinea pig style companies make aspen bedding in these bricks. I'd use that. They're cheaper. You get a lot more of it. Just make sure it's a substrate they can burrow in. Walnuts, ground walnuts should be fine. Although I'd be careful about feeding them on it because that'd probably clump together pretty well. Even this clumps together a bit more than I'd like it to. But, I mean, impaction's pretty rare. You just got to be a little cautious of it. Sand's not too good for them. Despite them being a desert species, they're kind of the same deal with Kenyan sand boas. There's a big debate on whether or not sand should be used for them. I'm just not going to take the risk. It's not worth it. It's a little dusty. They can get stuck in their eyes and their nose. It's just not a necessary pain. So, anyways, that's what I use. Decorations. I'd keep it to a minimum, in all honesty. I've thought about putting stuff in here with her before, and just seeing what she does. But really, there's no reason to. She doesn't do anything that would make it so she requires it. She just kind of likes to play and roam around her cage and eat. That's about it. Which brings me to the next thing. A lot of people will see this setup and they'll be like, well, where's the water dish? I put in a water dish once a month for 24 hours, take it out, let the whole tub air out good. Humidity is awful for Rosy Boas. I mean, humidity can injure Rosy Boa faster than any other factor, I'd say. It's a mistake that I'm sure plenty of people have made, and these snakes are so vulnerable to respiratory issues, it's absolutely ridiculous. So, shallow water dish, once a month, 24 hours, take it out. Seriously, don't mess with it and think, I'll just air it out every day and keep it in there constantly. No. Sometimes she won't even get a drink of the water when I have it in there for the day. She grows fine as long as they are eating regularly, which I'll get to in a second, actually. They should be fine if they're eating regularly in general because they get a lot of the juices from their prey. So you just once a month, 24 hours, all you need. Make sure you introduce it to them just in case they do want to get a drink. They know what it is. They'll get a drink if they want. If they don't get drinks, don't panic. They just don't want to get a drink. As long as they're not showing signs of dehydration, which would be pretty obvious. They'd be much weaker. They'd be much more wrinkled and just unhealthy looking. Unless they're looking like that, and as you can see, she is not. She rarely ever gets a drink of water, but she eats regularly enough that she's absolutely fine. Absolutely a healthy Rosy Boa. So, just don't keep a water dish in there 24/7, guys. It's a stupid risk. So on to feeding. Feeding with these guys is weird. They're known for being a lot like ball pythons in the sense that they will just not eat for long periods of time. She didn't eat for maybe 3 weeks when we got her. Then we got her to eat live, and then she didn't eat for like another 4. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she started slamming pinkies like no tomorrow. Moved her on to fuzzies. She stopped eating fuzzies. So we moved her back onto pinkies. She started eating pinkies again. Now she's starting to move back onto fuzzies because she doesn't want pinkies anymore. They're weird snakes. They are really weird in their dietary habits. Absolutely just odd. So some of them are going to want live. Some of them are going to want pre-killed. Some of them are going to want freshly killed. Some of them are going to want smaller meals, but several smaller meals throughout the week, or just 1 or 2 pinkies as opposed to, or 2 or 3 pinkies as opposed to just one fuzzy. And some of them are going to just want that one fuzzy. They're really weird. And she'll go back and forth on the way she wants her food. However, she's been pretty steady on eating frozen thawed. The only thing with her that's a little odd, and I have to say to kind of watch out for her, is that you'll think they'll eat, but you'll come back later and they'll have just buried it somewhere. That's happened with her plenty of times. I'll be like, what's that awful smell? Turns out she only ate one of the pinkies I gave her, and the other one will be like, buried somewhere under here. And I'll be like, oh, lovely. But, they're not that hard to care for. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're very chill. They're considered one of the friendliest snakes, but I've also had a couple people say theirs are a little sketchy. Really, the thing is, they're a smaller species of snake. That's not super, super, super common in captivity, and not a ton of people breed them, not a ton of people keep them. So they're a little bit more nervous around people than, say, a corn snake, and they'll be quicker to strike. Although they strike sideways, which is quite odd. The only other species I know that does this is Kenyan sand boas, but still, I've been hit by her a few times, and it's always because I'm reluctant to grab her. If I'm going like this, going back and forth about to grab her, say she's right here, she's not sure what's going on. Am I feeding her? Am I a predator about to swoop down and grab her? She doesn't know. So just for her sake and for her safety, she goes ahead and bites at it. That's that's not something that she's doing because she's mean or an aggressive snake. They're just a little weird sometimes like that, and they get nervous easy. So definitely be gentle with them. Never restrict them. If you even give them a light squeeze when you're holding them, they tend to be a little nippy. They don't like that, so just set them in your hand, follow them. Just be gentle with them. They're a gentle species. They're an absolute joy to keep. At least she has been. And yeah, I hope you guys, if you decide to keep a Rosy Boa or already have a Rosy Boa, have plenty of success doing so.